Welcome to the Friday Takeaway podcast with Chantelle, Morton and
Abigail, Summerfield.
We are here for International Women's Day. Welcome to the phenomenal guests. We are joined by Kim Howells, Creative Director and Stylist, long-time collaborator with Rankin, appointed Hunger Magazine's Fashion Director, working with the likes of Nicola Formichetti, Judy Blame, Dr. Noki, Zandra Rhodes, Dior. You've created iconic looks for ID, King Kong, Dazed, L'Official, British and International Vogue. Welcome. And we're joined by Emily Evans, stylist, who has contributed to Vogue Italia, Vanity Fair, Vogue Brazil, Vogue Arabia, with clients from Gucci, Jimmy Choo, Victor & Rolf, Zandra Rhodes. She's VIP stylist now for people like Lewis Hamilton and is making Ashley Graham look fire. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us. So we're here to talk about International Women's Day. You are phenomenal women. We want to start by this quote, which is, "The most successful people lift as they climb." And that was a quote from Caitlin Kumi, who's the marketing manager for Google. And we wanted to start with that, which is a really positive comment. Tell us about that. What do you feel?
I think it's great that quotes like that are now coming to the forefront, because I know from myself, when I was a youngster in the fashion industry, it wasn't about building women up. It was very much a punishing arena to be in. And I think for me, my growth didn't go as fast as it potentially could have done, because I was around women who didn't do that. So I think it's amazing now that you can't treat people badly. You should tell people when they do a good job, and you help people, because for creative people, the better you feel about yourself, the better work that you do. And I'm sure, you have had the same experiences. So I think it's great that we're in this position today going forward. And I hope that it continues to grow from there.
Yeah, it has changed so much, because it was very dog eat dog. If you had a contact and somebody needed it, you didn't give it to them. And you'd be like, well, you've just got it in front of you. No, you've got to find it. Yeah. And you'd just be like, why are you making it hard? Like, it's just like, let's all work together. So it is nice, it's caught up with humanity, and that we can apply humanity to being creative, and it doesn't have to be a shift, or it's not an exclusive club, I think that's just naff. This is about doing something that you enjoy doing and having all the tools to do it, and power in numbers. It's not the same doing it by yourself. It's lonely anyway. Why would you want to do it like that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So what do you think the most important character traits are, or your 3 most important character traits, if you had to choose?
I would say that I am inclusive, and inclusive has always been super important to me. And that's for everybody on set, or everybody involved in something. There's nobody, if everyone that's working on a project is working on a project, there's no hierarchy. It's no kind of when I was assisting, I remember being, when I was assisting Nicola, and we were in LA doing a Ashton Kutcher, I think, shoot with V-Man with Mario Testino, right? And it was so nice, because I was assistant, I'm steaming away for my life in the basement, just off she goes. And at the end of the job, Mario came round and thanked every single person. And he had to go down 2 floors to find me in the basement, steaming away and packing my suitcase. Totally didn't have to do that. And it was just a very polite, thank you for your time on set today. That was it. And I was like, wow, that's really goes a long way. Because he could have just, jumped in a car or a helicopter and gone off. But, he didn't. And I just thought it's really, really a nice way of doing things. And that's how it should be. Especially, coming from Wales, everybody is chatty and friendly. So I did find the transition to London really hard at first. So when you get those pockets of oh, actually, you can, it does operate like that. It gives you a lot of hope that you can find yourself within it, which I think is really important. So that's one answer. Nurturing. I like to nurture people. I like to look after people. And now I'm a mum. It's a whole new level. She's a bit mumsy. But yeah, I like to look after people. And then I'd say also, I don't take things too seriously. I think you only live once. What's the point? And it's like we're doing something we really enjoy, and we're really lucky to do a job that you enjoy, you know. And I think that if you take it too seriously, it takes all the fun out of it. I don't want to get to I don't want to be on a nursing chair like in a nursing home at 80 and be like, oh, it was all, I didn't laugh enough. But you look back at all the memories and you're like, they were all quite lol, but you didn't see the lol at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Didn't lol enough.
No, so I'm lolling the whole time. I love it.
Brilliant answers, Emily.
Yeah, I need to lol some more. I think my work ethic, I think, is probably one of my best character traits. I work really hard. I put my career in front of pretty much everything. I feel like everyone should be given an equal opportunity, but come to the room and work hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think it's evenings like tonight are really great because, I do feel that everybody should be given a fair chance in the creative industry, whether you've come from, creative background or money or no money or, whatever your thing is. If you're creative, you should be part of this. But being creative doesn't mean to say that you just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Come in, show up, work hard. And I go to bed every night, and what's ever happened, I know, a lot of my work with VIPs, it's a big game of logistics. It's literally, will FedEx arrive? Otherwise, everything, it's like a house of cards. It's like, will this arrive? Will that arrive? Will that go there with that? Will she like that? Will he like that? Will this be done with it? And it's like, if I know that I've done absolutely everything in my power to make something work, there's nothing else I can do. Yeah. But if I know that I could have done something else, it will eat me up. So for me, it's hard. For me, it's like I work 7 days a week. Generally, I love my work. And I think it's really important to find a place within this industry that you are really passionate about. Otherwise, it's probably not that much fun because it's hard work. I have a lot of assistants that join and they're like, this is really rubbish because
I think there's
hard work.
There's a false filter on what
fashion
assisting is.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's really important to give a true viewpoint because it's not glitz and glam.
It's not glitz and glamour. But yeah, and then probably honesty and transparency with what I do is really important. I think you can lose relationships really quickly if you're not honest. And even from the other side, I've had a situation with trying to get a thing organised for somebody for a big event, and it was all going ahead, and then all of a sudden the person who's doing it, who's being paid to do it, just disappeared on email. And it's we're all adults. I'm not going to keep begging you to email me back. So just be honest and just tell me because we'll all move on. And I think that's kind of an important trait because, again, just because it's clothes and it's red carpets doesn't mean to say that from A to B is everyone's got to be on the same page. So yeah, honesty and hard work, I would say.
I think you just triggered something. I think it is really important. Now what I'm seeing a lot is because people, when I started, it was face to face. It was a lot of face to face. There was a lot of phoning. Yeah. It was get shit done, get on the phone, email. It wasn't emailing the person. It was go for coffee with this person. We're going to do a huge collaboration with Louis Vuitton. Go for breakfast with Louis Vuitton. Tell them about the project. And then we're going to make this amazing shoot happen, right? So yes, there was a bit more time there maybe, but it was also they were all the beautiful, brilliant conversations that build your foundations. Whereas I think what's really interesting now and the danger now is that everything's done on a DM or an email. And then if you do disappear, there's no accountability. But it's that's not how things work. You can't get things done like that. And you're not going to last in time like that because you've got to be, what you put in is what you get out. And I think that like the danger is hiding behind emails. And it, you know, I do encourage people to just like pick up a phone or go and have a coffee, or if you know you're assisting somebody, you know, those people will understand that it's important. Like if my assistant was like, I'd love to go and have a coffee with like the junior PR at so and so and so, I think that's amazing. Go and do that, because that's like really good for their growth, you know, for everybody. And I think we need to bring that back into it a bit, because I see that going really quickly.
I think you've touched on something that was going to be my next question, actually, which is actually what, in terms of like limiting, particularly women's career growth, I think the social media and hiding behind DMs, hiding behind emails, that's just standard, sadly. But in terms of like your careers and then seeing the next like younger generation, younger women, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that is limiting women's careers today?
I think a lot is maybe somewhat self-doubt, or, you know, maybe there's a lot of that you know, you talk to people and you see that they'll always put it off, or they'll be like, I haven't quite got this part set up yet, or I haven't quite, this part's not quite ready, and when that bit's done, then I'll be, yeah, it's never all gonna be done. So you just gotta start. Like I always say, just start. Like just throw yourself out there, just do a little bit, and then it'll join on to something else, and it'll join on to something else, and then before you know it, this will happen. But when you're waiting, nothing happens if you wait. So I think that's probably...
Anything, Emily, that you think are obstacles for women?
For me, I think definitely childcare has been a massive obstacle. Being freelance, being able to do editorial shoots, not really get paid for them properly. Then you've got 3 children, you know, like that for me was like, this is really a frustrating thing, because I wanted both. That for me, and I've managed to work through it. And I do think one of the good things that has come out of the whole pandemic is that, you know, like a few years ago, my husband, if it was a work from home, like that never like people didn't work from home. People had to show up. People had to be in an office. There was no flexibility for most jobs. And I think now, if I had young children now, I feel like I would have more support from my husband's side of work, because it just wasn't a thing. It was like, well, you're doing the kind of artsy-fartsy thing, and so you can do it both. But on the plus side, I'm a very good multitasker.
That's your other trait.
Oh yeah. So how did you manage then?
I think if you want to do something enough, you'll make it work. Do you know what I mean? And at times it wasn't easy, but I think my eldest daughter's here in the room, so she might be able to testify for me. But I think also I have 3 daughters, and I think for 3 daughters to see that your mum is like trying to do something and maybe stuff doesn't, I think sometimes people just think that you want to be a stylist and boom, you're like, like for me, that wasn't my journey. I did a few things, I went back, I did this, I did something else in between. I had a family. And I think you lose quite a lot of confidence. I lost quite a lot of confidence when I became a mother about my other life, which was a very creative life. And I think for my children, it's been good for them, because they've seen me really be passionate about something and like make it work. And even at times I really wasn't feeling like I was making it work, but I look back now at 5 years ago and I'm like, oh, actually, I've made it work. And it wasn't like easy at times, and it was juggling and asking favors of people and, you know, all of that stuff. But I think it's good for girls to see that no one can have it all ever. And I think it's just part of like being a woman, is that actually we're quite good at doing a lot of different things.
That's really
So yeah.
There was something I'd like to pick up on, because you said that you had different career avenues and different things. And what was the moment? Could you describe the moment that you realised your potential? And it was like that eureka. It was that moment of like, yeah, I can do this. This is my skill. This is my talent.
I think for me, I'd had a long time in working for other brands, styling for people, and then I'd built up my own brand, which I'd had for 15 years. And I went back to styling and I was nervous about it. And I did a 22 look shoot for Vogue Italia. And I remember everyone being like, oh my God, this is like amazing. And I remember thinking, this is what I should be doing. Like, this is what I should be doing right now. This is like totally, I see stuff. This is, I go to bed and I dream of like clothes and outfits and stuff. And this is what and I think it was probably that, because it was like, not that it was easy, but I was like, it flowed. And for me, when things don't flow, I probably shouldn't. I've looked back and I've tried to do certain things. Like I've tried to do an office job that didn't work at all. Yeah, I have to be out there feeling things.
Yeah.
That sounds really creepy.
No, it doesn't, because you went like that. So I knew what you meant. It was fabric. So I knew what you meant. It might not sound right on the podcast, but it was right. Kim, was there a moment that you just thought, oh, this is it. I've got it. This is me.
I think for me, like a huge moment was when I started like interning at Dazed. So I didn't, like rewind, like grew up in like a hill in Wales. So used to just get on like a mega bus to London to buy a Vogue. Do you know what I mean? It was like nothing made its way over the bridge. So I was like really excited. I was like, right, I'm going to be a designer. You know, I was always sketching as a kid in a car, and just always, and my sister would always do my actual homework. She's like really good reader, and I just draw. And then I got an internship at Dazed, and I was like, oh, you know, I think I'm going to be a designer, but I don't quite know. I'll have to do this internship and work out what it is I want to do. Like after I went to uni in Brighton, and I was a bit like, I'm not sure if I want to design anymore, because I didn't know all this other stuff existed. Like I didn't know all these other jobs were available. I didn't know you could be a casting director or a set designer or, you know, a stylist. This was like blew my mind. So when I was at Dazed, I remember they had like one of these amazing light boxes that everybody could view. Like you could just kind of walk past it. And Catherine Barbar did the most amazing, like Grace Jones inspired shoot for Dazed back in like 2006. And she's amazing anyway. And I walked past the light box and I literally was like, oh, this is so dramatic. And I was like, what is that? Like it was everything that I loved in images. And I was like, this is so amazing. And it was like, you know, graphic and bold and really empowering and colourful and like really fierce. And I just like, this is a job. And that's when I was like, if that's a job, that's what I want to, like, that's what I want to do. I want to do this as a job. Then obviously I had to, and I just started interning, so I had to see if I was actually any good at it. But that was a moment where I was like, if that is a job, this is what I'm gonna focus on, and this is what I'm gonna work towards, because that really excited me and kind of did all the right things. And I think I don't have like a really long attention span, so I think working on projects for months, it doesn't work for me. Like I love like a phone call and a shoot in 3-4 days. Like, you know, a week, amazing. Any longer than that, great. But, you know, I like these fast turnarounds, and I like you're doing a music video and then you're doing a catwalk show and then you're doing an editorial, and it's all different and you're meeting lots of different people. I like that, rather than going to like a studio every day and being around the same people. I'm not that type of person.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing that you could pinpoint those moments of like, this is me.
Yeah,
I've got
because there's a feeling.
Yeah.
And I think you can't argue the feeling.
And especially in creative industries as well. It is your gut instinct on that. Yeah. Slightly different question. What career question do you wish people would start asking women that they're not?
A tough one.
Do you want to get paid more?
Yeah, that's valid. It really is. And that was kind of the beginning of our conversation that our listeners wouldn't have heard, but we're still number 22.
The UK is 22 in the gender pay gap. Yeah, 22.
I'm really surprised.
Globally. Did you think we would be higher?
Yeah, like 4 or 5.
Yeah, 22. And it's been like that a long time. So yeah, your point is, to talk about pay. Yeah.
And to also touch base with like, how are people doing? Yeah. You know, like I think that's really important. And I think some businesses have got that really right now, but I think a lot of businesses need to catch up with that and check in, because I feel like this kind of movement of like stripping stripping teams down but expecting the same results. And that's not cool, and it's not going to last forever, and it's not going to get you good results. And I see it and I hear it with friends, and so many conversations all the time are like, oh, you know, I just feel like I'm here for like so many more hours a day because this and this happened, and I'm not getting listened to. Or somebody asked me how I am, like my boss asked me how I am, I told them, and then they added another project the next day. And it's like, that's the struggle, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah, it is. It all starts at the top.
So I think that you can, like for women, like you can change your mind what you want to do. Like there's so many different avenues that you can go down. And I think just because you start doing something when you're in your 20s doesn't mean to say that that's what you end up doing. So like, I think for a lot of women, they feel like they have to stay in one thing and prove what they're doing and get to the top or do whatever they're doing. But it's like, I've done loads of different things. I've changed direction many times.
Yeah. So in terms of asking women, like actually saying to you, you can change.
Are you actually happy doing what you're doing?
Well, I think that ties in quite nicely, because the next question has to do with self-doubt. But rather than saying, okay, I'm pretty sure everybody's experienced self-doubt unless you're someone special. But have you thought of ways to overcome them? Have you kind of figured your way out of that almost imposter syndrome, and you've managed to figure out, well, actually, no, this is how I'm going to come out the other side? Maybe to share with sort of tips on how you've been able to deal with that.
I think it's always good to reflect. Just reflect on like who you are, like, you know, where you've come from, like what you've done to do A, B, and C. And that's kind of all you need to do. You know, you look at the thing, you know, you look at the path you've walked and the people you've met and the things you've done and the sacrifices you've made to do things. And, you know, and it's very inspiring, actually. I think you can forget about it because you're living it. But then I think when you have conversations, or, you know, and even have conversations with yourself, it's very interesting when, you know, you can look back. And even like teaching, like I enjoy going to visit unis and teaching, and because, you know, you've got all these amazing young people in front of you that want to go on to do these things, and they're asking you questions, and you're like, oh yeah, you just do da 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 da, and you're like, well, I didn't know that when I was your age. And it makes you remember how much you do know, and all the help and support you can give other people to do what they want to do.
I just really try and keep calm. If I panic, everything goes really badly wrong. So I've learned to just like, even if I'm in a situation that's like getting a bit, I'll just go outside. I'll say, I'm just going to make a quick call. I'll just like realign myself, because I think sometimes our thoughts can just tell us that we're not good enough. No one thinks, you know, like all of that silly dialogue that I think women in particular are quite good at latching onto. And I don't want that to define me. So for me, if I panic, I can't see the wood for the trees. And if I just calm down, everything's generally okay.
Right. Can you think of someone, particularly a woman, who might have inspired you recently? What did they do to inspire you?
Well, I've had quite a mega one this morning, really. So I started this platform called Tits Up, right? After I had my son, because I had him in Indigo in first lockdown, and things truly went tits up. So I was like, that's actually quite a good name. So I'm going to start a platform called Tits Up, and we're going to support other mums and families, you know, and bring us together as a support group. So this morning I held a brunch and welcomed this amazing womb healer called Chloe Isadora. And it was just, I find these kind of sessions so incredibly inspiring, because it's so different to fashion, and these women kind of come together and they're so open and they're so vulnerable, and they're so good at sharing real life stories, and learning about the womb, and who in this room has like had time with their womb. It's like I wouldn't have even thought of it until a few years ago when I stumbled on it, and I've become really interested in it. And I just think, it was such a brilliant way to start International Women's Day in this wonderful group of women who were talking about, birthing and being women, and, all like how incredible our bodies are. So I'd like to give her a shout out, because it's very
Who were
inspiring.
lifting as they climb to our quote, this morning in your meeting. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
I have a friend who, her name's Hannah Coleman, and she started working at Jimmy Choo when she was 17, and she was working on the shop floor as a junior, and she's worked her way up, and 23 years later, and she doesn't have any qualifications, she just worked hard, and she's the CEO of Jimmy Choo now. And for me, that's like, she just kept showing up, doing a really good job, working with other people really well. And they made her the CEO 2 years ago. And I'm just like, she's one of my really good friends. And it's just so inspiring, because sometimes we get caught up in, well, I don't have this degree, or I didn't go to this amazing fashion school, or I don't know these people. And she didn't know anyone. And she came from Nottingham on a train and worked as a Saturday girl.
Amazing.
So that's my...
Wow,
Have you told
I love
her?
that.
Yeah.
Several times.
Many times.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just before, because we've got a couple of minutes, so if we wouldn't mind a snapshot for each of you of, as amazing creative women in the industry, what's next for you?
I've got lots of work with Ashley Graham going forward. She's been a really great person to work with for the last 6 months. And yeah, it's just great, because not only is she a supermodel, but she has like a lot of amazing stuff that she stands for, and she's an amazing activist. So I'm kind of like continuing on my journey with her, and doing a lot of editorial with her, which is really fun as well. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Nice to work with someone you've got a connection with as well.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Lots of women, and actually we had a fitting on Zoom this morning, and it was a female designer on a female. Everyone in the room was female. I was female, and it's like, we're actually quite good at this.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. Kim.
Well, I've got tumble tots in the morning with my toddler, which is going to be pretty amazing. And then I just want to continue creating great content with great people, and then also really pushing my Tits Up platform to bring more and more wonderful women together and really focus on well-being, because I feel like that's a really important issue.
Yeah. And again, for creative people, creative women,
Yeah.
creative women with families, well-being, looking after ourselves.
Yeah, again,
Fantastic.
trying to get that balance and understanding, any support with those type of things.
Yeah, amazing. So I think Abby and I, we've talked about this. We feel that it's a transformative time in the creative industries, and particularly for women. And we want to continue pushing this debate, pushing this conversation, women in industry, women in creative industries, to empower people, to have those talks, to help our listeners, and hopefully from this podcast, help you be inspired to create the best work of your lives, to not have those moments of self-doubt if you do go out and make a call. But actually, we just want to keep working together. Friday Takeaway is about that, about empowering people. And we just think that it's the right time to be doing that. And we hope that that comes across from this podcast and to our listeners. So get in touch.
Yeah, so contact us on Instagram, Friday Takeaway, or fridaytakeaway.com, or LinkedIn, Friday Takeaway. Lots of Friday Takeaways, you'll find us. And join in the conversation. We want to hear from you, hear from your experiences. Please do let us know, and let's keep the conversation going. So thank you so much to our guests this evening. We really appreciate your time.
Amazing women.
for having us. Thank you.